All right. Happy Friday, everybody. It is 1 p.m. on a pretty cool Friday afternoon. And I am super excited to have a very special guest on the show today. My friend Dan. Dan and I go way back to, I can't even remember. Like, I think they didn't even have LinkedIn back then. Um, Dan's a pretty cool guy in a lot of ways, off the camera and outside of work as well. But I wanted to have him on the show because he is starting or putting together a global strategy for a very large enterprise organization. Can't tell you who. And he's thinking about some really big questions around sourcing. Plus, on top of that, Dan is a Marine and also was a recruiter with the US Navy and has experience working with companies in the retail space like Amazon and in consulting, like I think Booz, right, and KPMG, Bearing Point, and big staffing firms like Randstad. Also, Dan does some volunteer work with Military Mojo. Dan, what is Military Mojo? Can you tell everybody what that is?
Yeah, so first, hey, thanks for having me on here. Like, I always watch this every Friday, and I always just pick up bits of knowledge. So hopefully somebody gets some bit of knowledge from me, or I've learned something new about myself just talking to you. So thanks for doing this. So Military Mojo, right? One of my favorite organizations out there. It's a job fair series that focuses in on military veterans, really those in transition, right? It's open to all veterans, but it's a way for employers to connect with military veterans. And they do 3 or 4 job fairs per year. And I should say this is all pre-pandemic. We're hoping to be able to get it kicked back up again soon. But it's not the giant oversized convention center job fair. It's just the right size with a lot of access given and relationships forged between the two sides because it's a 2-day event. So there's a lot of just get to know you. Here's who we are and what we do.
Real networking. It's not just a booth fest.
Yeah, the booth fest is probably the smallest part of the whole thing. It's
got it.
My favorite twist that they do is the first day is the companies making pitches to the candidates, right? Classroom style. We're company ABC, and this is what we do. And to watch the eyes light up and say, we only think about jobs and companies of what we see on the store shelves a lot of times.
Right.
Right. The first line
visible.
Thing, that first touch. When in reality, right, major companies do a lot of different things that need a lot of different people, and you don't realize they have these jobs or need certain skills until you actually hear from the company or even realize where they're located. Global companies, everybody knows where the headquarters is, but often we think past all of the other offices and locations that they have that are opportunities for us. So yeah, it's a good time. I love supporting that group.
And so is it free for employers to participate, or how do people find out about it?
Way to find out about it, you can visit the Military Mojo website. It is a nominal cost.
Definitely worthwhile
to attend, and I do mean nominal cost. It
cool.
Doesn't hurt the budget much at all, and it gets you
militarymojo.com, right?
Yeah, it's been a bit since I visited the site.
Yeah.
But yeah, it should be militarymojo.com or militarymojo.org.
Oh, okay, right. That's right. It's .org, militarymojo.org. Yep. And they're still having events right now, still through the.
Yeah, they just announced. I think the next one is going to be in April in Charleston, South Carolina.
Cool.
Normally this time of year, this date worked out perfect because normally today would be the event in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Because tomorrow is the Army-Navy football game.
I know, you're pretty excited about that.
Go Navy, beat Army. And so, yeah, they would do a job fair 2 days prior to the event, given that all the service members are heading to Philly to go watch the game.
Yeah, for those of folks that are listening, and you saw the little poster that I made for Dan, there's a Not College T-shirt banner there folks who who are outside of kind of the military sphere might not know what that is. Can you tell us what not college is? The
Yeah,
N with
so
it.
it's a funny joke that anybody that wore a uniform will probably pick up on. The N and the star is the logo for the Naval Academy. It's a little bit of a different 4-year academic institution in college, so it's kind of the uncollege, just given the stuff that we get to experience there. So yeah, the funny joke
It's a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek irony. Yeah. Cool. So I can't share where you landed, but you recently took on a pretty big job, and you have to basically make sorcerers. Where are you getting sorcerers?
Yeah,
there's like a worldwide shortage right now.
Yeah, right. There's a shortage in everything, and and this is a challenge that I think everybody that's in any type of manager or leadership role in a sourcing or TA organization struggles with. Right. This should be our worry: is where is our next generation of talent coming from?
Yeah.
We do a really good job of pitching to our hiring managers that you're not going to find a candidate that's a 100% fit, and we've got to make some adjustments and expectation setting.
Where can you flex?
And behaviors and raw talent and create your new dream team member. And then when we look for our own talent, our own recruiters and sorcerers, one of the first things we say is they need to have 6 years of experience doing X.
Okay, the same thing that they're going to be doing here, right? Yeah.
So yeah, I'm forever a fan of growing my own talent. Right. I think that it's strength.
So where are they coming from? Like, wait, okay, so they weren't sorcerers before. What were they? I agree with you.
Yeah,
My last few hires have been, I hired a teacher, a math teacher with 2 master's degrees, super smart, very techie, never even considered and she's doing great. Hired a guy who used to be doing customer support for it's customer support, but it's techie. It's like not a help desk, it's troubleshooting. People would call in, the business client would call in and like, my software is not working. So it's a little bit more than like PC support. It's more like servers and stuff like that. So that he's doing great. Somebody from experiential marketing. So they're all over, but where are you getting them?
Really all over. I'm kind of agnostic in where they were before, but what I look for the most is that behavior, right? One of the biggest things that I want to see out of a future sorcerer is that I think is the most important, a natural curiosity to learn. Right? We think about all the tools that are out there that are at our fingertips. And when we look at sorcerers, oftentimes just in the industry right now, we can look at sorcerers and say they're great, they're good, they're average. And I think the great ones are the ones that are curious enough to start to dig into tools and understand how they work. Right? I'll toot your horn here. Years ago, when I saw the way you can search Facebook for things.
Yep.
Right? Nobody taught you how to do that. There's a natural curiosity that you looked at something and said, let me dig in and understand how this works so that I can take it and manipulate it to do what I want it to do. That curiosity.
Because there has to be a way, right? Like
right.
There has to be a way to do it.
So we've got to be able to deconstruct it. That curiosity, that exploration is critically important in hiring future great sorcerers.
But you know what also, I mean, for me, it's not just that curiosity is a big part of it, but it's also, at least in my case, extreme laziness. And you and I agree on that. We've talked about that before.
Right? Our Von Hammerschmidt moment.
Yeah, you've told me, I don't want anybody who works hard. I want someone who's really lazy. It's like the opposite of what you would think, right?
Yeah.
Why?
It's I think a lot of times we can't confuse lazy as a bad 4-letter word, right? There's a difference between lazy and just sloth-like, right? Lazy.
So you combine lazy with curiosity, and you combine lazy with like
Clever.
creativity, right?
Yep, there you
And
go.
now
Yeah,
you have
creativity is
someone
another
that's
word.
going to just, yeah.
Yep.
So, all right. So we got
Can I
curiosity and
get
creativity, right?
this? How can I get the best possible result with the least possible effort? That's lazy, right? The guy that invented the remote control for our TVs
Was lazy.
didn't say want to build
Right.
technology. He didn't want to get up off the couch and walk to the TV to change it. So he figured out a way to do it. It's brilliant and lazy. Right?
And everybody else is like, come on, you're not, why don't you want to just get up and walk to the TV?
Yeah, right.
I don't want to do it. There's got to be a way. He probably had a stick that he used to like poke twist the knob or whatever.
I can laugh and said, I'll never do that. I can get up and walk the 10 feet. Now we can't even imagine, like, now we've got voice commands even, right?
Right. You don't have to push the button anymore.
Gosh, no, I want to speak it. It's so much easier. But yeah, right. That attitude and mindset of how can I do this better so that I don't have to work as hard. And it's not even as hard, as intense, right? We want to.
For me, it's a matter of I'll spend an hour trying to figure out something that would take me 5 minutes to do manually, but I'm going to spend an hour trying to figure out how to automate it, how to streamline it, because I only have to spend 5 minutes doing it now, but I know that's something I'm going to have to do 100 times. And
bingo,
that's 500 minutes, right?
And
so
that's
definitely
something that I learned. I never appreciated that investment aspect, right? We want to, you had mentioned it last week with Mary about, right, the right level of effort on something or the right amount of technology, but I never appreciated till I got into the high volume space and the really enterprise level sourcing efforts. 1 minute of time, right? One process that you can shave 1 minute off of. If you have to repeat that process, if you're a 50,000 hire a year organization, 1 minute on one step, that adds up.
That adds up a lot.
It adds up fast, just like your pennies do, right? Even pay-per-click campaigns and programmatic ad buying, figuring out how to shave down 2 cents off of every click, that adds up at the end of the year to some significant amounts. It doesn't feel like it while we're doing it, but it adds up, and you've always got to think in terms of scale like that when you're at a big organization with a lot of hires.
Yeah. So what else? So we got curiosity.
So
we got creativity combined with laziness.
Proficiency.
Okay. Technical aptitude, technical tendency.
And even that, the willingness to learn, right? I think, when we started sourcing, being able to write a Boolean string was a litmus test. If you can't write a Boolean string, get out of this chair because you're not interviewing anymore. But now there's so many shortcuts and apps that you can just, you put in the 2 keywords you're looking for and the Boolean string will write itself. So
they don't have to be a technical wizard, but they need to be comfortable with technology.
Yeah. That the other thing I enjoy in good sorcerers is being able to spin multiple plates at the same time, like a circus performer, right?
Okay. Multitasking.
Yeah, we all do this every day. Okay. A million different things going on all at once, and you've got to be able to prioritize.
But it's prioritization, right? So, like, do you believe that there is such a thing as multitasking? I don't. I think it's rapid linear tasking.
That's a great term. Yeah, multitasking just means we're busy. Right. It's being able to control the things going on and control when it happens and how it happens sometimes and the order it happens. That is really important because some things require a great deal of intensity and energy, right? You just can't get around it sometimes. So you've got to be able to
focus.
Time management would be a great one, right? Can you arrange things so that you can apply the right amount of pressure and energy on the things that need it, right? It's, even decision making in the heat of the moment.
Right.
Knowing
tactical boots on the ground decision making.
Do I need to decide this right now, or can I wait?
Or can I Right.
later, and how much effort. That type of stuff. I don't think there's any difference, at least in my opinion. Uh, introvert versus extrovert in the world of recruiting, because I think they both have their strengths that play well into the world of sourcing. It's weird. There's no barrier of entry into sourcing or TA.
Not really. No, just the time, the learning, right? You don't have to have these hard qualifications, but you have to be willing to put in the effort and learn it.
Somebody wants to, really just lean forward. If you're willing to lean forward, somebody out there is probably willing to hire you in that role, because who doesn't want to go get her? One of the things I think that we as an industry can probably do better with, right? I think back to all the interviews I've done to hire sorcerers before. One of the things I was focused on is career pathing, right?
Where do they go?
Yeah. And that's a question of every candidate that's really motivated is, all right, what do I do 2 years from now? What do I do 5 years from now? What does a career path look like? And
I think what's different between a sorcerer and a recruiter, at least in the mindset, at least when you're looking at someone, I was an entry-level recruiter once, believe it or not, so are you. And the difference in the mindset of a person who would become a career recruiter versus a person who become a career sorcerer is the interest in problem solving versus the interest in people. If people are more interesting, relationships, building relationships, if that's more interesting, that tends to be more on the recruiting side. If the puzzle is more interesting, that tends to be more on the sourcing side. So someone who's got that puzzle mentality and becomes a sorcerer, goes into that space, they may not necessarily want to be a recruiter.
Yeah, and I think that's something that is really important to point out, right? Because I guess in the grand scheme of industry, sourcing is still a baby, right?
That's true. It's only a few years old.
Yeah, kind of like humans are still just a speck of dust in the universe. Sourcing is still a baby in terms of maturity of career paths and our place in corporate America. We're evolving yet, and years ago, right? It was you're hired as a junior sorcerer, you turn into a senior sorcerer. Then if you work really hard, you could get promoted to recruiting coordinator. Now,
not so much anymore.
Yeah, no. Now we understand the technical acumen that goes with that high-level sorcerer, and the career progression is not changing lanes to a different task entirely. It's growing that task to get even better at it. They diverge. They both fall into that TA umbrella, but recruiting and sourcing, very different functions.
Yeah, it might be. You're right. It might be in the baby infancy stage still, but if you go on just on LinkedIn, you'll see that there are 20,000 people that have that job title, and that's just sorcerer. There's a bunch of other job titles and names for the role. So it's definitely it's new, but it's happening.
We're still not universally defined.
No.
By what we do, the way an accountant is, or some other well-established career track and title. Sorcerers.
Yeah, it's kind of like product manager, or product manager is so many different things. It's also a pretty new job title, right? There weren't product managers 100 years ago in the rise of the manufacturing and industrial revolution. So it's similar to that. It's like there's different ways of describing product manager.
Yeah, we are, that flexibility, and adaptability, that's how you stick around in the industry for a long time and get to do new things and grow yourself, right? Mm-hmm. I'm sure you've had the same moments I've had where I could sit and stare at a screen on a problem, and it's not until I throw away everything I believe to be true and just throw it away and then look at the problem again and go, okay, this is easy to solve. because I was
shifting your paradigm. Yeah.
Yeah, I was stuck in preconceived ideas of what is and isn't possible, and what does and doesn't matter, and I was boxing myself in. And
so that adds to our, so that's tenacity. That's grit. That's another, we'll add to the curiosity, the creativity, the technical aptitude, the discomfort with the status quo, time management, prioritization, and tenacity or grit.
Yeah.
We've added to the list of core competencies. Yeah.
Right. We solved the sourcing issue right now of where to source candidates. And the great thing and the worst thing about that is everything we just talked about is found in every industry.
Right.
You can't define it by, salespeople at X company have this, so that's a great place to hire from.
Some salespeople have it, some salespeople don't. Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was saying. I found somebody that was a college professor that had it. It's not a unique set of skills, but it is a set of skills that only exists in some people. So, not everyone has it, but in every industry, I think you can find them. That's a pretty good point.
It's an individual. They just happen to be in that industry. They could have been in any other industry. And they still have those same traits and behaviors. So yeah, it's neat. I think that's kind of the fun thing about looking to hire sorcerers is you never know where you're going to find them. You just don't know, and it forces us to be at the top of our game when we're looking for talent, right? We've got to really know what we want, so that when we do accidentally stumble across it, boom, there it is. I mean, even my own entry into the world of recruiting, like everybody else, accidental. I was a math and engineering guy while I was in the Navy. I was running around the engineering department on the ship, figuring out, how does the engine work? Then I got stuck on a recruiting duty tour.
Oh yeah, right.
And 6 months in, I was like, this is the greatest thing on the planet. Oh my gosh, I love this. And learned everything.
That doesn't happen to everybody, by the way. I know some people that would, did a tour and they're like, get me out of here.
It's pure bliss or it's pure misery.
Right, exactly.
And a lot of it, right, there's a number of factors that go into that, but I fell in love with it. Just the process of it and the impact you have every day. And you get to see what happens in that next chapter of someone's life. And I enjoyed it tremendously. And then I found out that was a real job in corporate America.
Right.
And I was gone.
Hey, I could get paid to do this. Yeah, more. I could get paid more to do this. So, all right. So we found the people that are going to be sorcerers. Now, how are we going to hold them accountable? How do we measure them? And you and I also agree on this one thing, which is very often leaders forget about the sourcing organization's accountability, right? That there's a lot of talk about how do you measure a sorcerer, the metrics that you use to measure a sorcerer, but there's not enough, I think, conversation around the sourcing org. How do you know if a group of sorcerers, a team, is productive? Why don't we start with that? What's the difference between them, and how would you separate them, and what would you do for the team that's different for the recruiter, the individual?
The analogy I always use is a football team versus a track team, right?
Okay.
A team has 11 players on it that are all working in unison. They all have their own role and own task of who to block and who to tackle and who to catch. They all do it their own job, but they function as one unit. Versus like a track team, it's got 11 people, but each one goes out and does their event. There is no influence from the rest of their team on their performance. And then they all just total up, okay, I got first, I got second in this, and they total the points up. And that determines the team victory, is the combination of everybody's individual performances over the day versus the football team that has to function all as one, all at the same time. And we get, I think a lot of times, I've been part of this growing up in sourcing, right? We are so focused on what each individual sorcerer is doing that for the organization to have a good result means every sorcerer had to have a great day, and or some sorcerer knocked it out of the park that week. that lifted everybody else up. We've got to think about the health of the our entire team, and how we impact the entire recruiting team and the rest of the business. One of the ways it means being closely tied together with the recruiting side of the house. One of the things that every organization is different. We have to use the measurements that work for ourselves and the environment we're in.
Right. So how you're connecting to the strategic vision and the direction of the company, right? Of course.
One of my favorites to look at is time to fill. And
for the individual or for the team?
Not for the individual, for the team.
Okay.
Right? And not just our portion of it, but it's something that, right? It's not that there is a number of days that is good and a number of days that is bad. There is no, we were at 40 days time to fill a year ago, and we're at 30 days of time to fill now. That number by itself means kind of nothing. It's the change month to month that I keep an eye on, right? If last month I was at 40 days time to fill across the organization, and this month we're at 60 days time to fill across the organization, that is my canary in the coal mine, right?
You just stumbled on something that I have been trying to communicate to people for, I don't know how long. It gives me a migraine, and it's the difference between a measurement and a metric. Everybody says metrics, but what they mean is measurement. The time to fill, I'm sorry, but this is a pet peeve of mine. Time to fill is not a metric. Time to fill is a measure. How fast your car is going is not a metric. How fast your car is going is a measurement of speed. The time to fill is a measurement of speed, right? The metric is the change in the measurement. The delta between the two. Take two measurements and the difference, that's the metric. And everybody gets it wrong. It's just such a pet peeve.
If it's on an Excel sheet, it's a metric, right?
Oh, man. If you can measure it, it's a measure. If you can't measure it and you have to have two measurements to use it, it's a metric.
Yeah, it's that.
Speed is a measurement, but acceleration is a metric.
Oh, we're getting into physics. I love it.
Well, because, right, I mean, I know that's your thing, and I was a physics scholar early on before I went into computer science. But yeah, it's the difference between the speed is instantaneously, right? We take a reading on the speed right now. Time to fill is an instant reading of what is time to fill right now. And what you're saying is that's not as important as what was it last month? And what are we going to, where are we heading? Like, are we the same as last month or different than that? And what does that mean? And why is it different?
What caused it, right?
That's right.
When we see a huge increase, right? We can't even solution what caused it, just seeing the increase. But what it does is, right, we're talking about hundreds, if not thousands of hires a month. So there's that, there's weight to that number, right? We know it's not just, well, one person had, one rec that took a year to fill. There's enough mass there to get an accurate reading when you're talking about hundreds and thousands of hires a month. So if my time to fill jumps up 10 days, that just tells me that gives me reason to start digging, right? I know something is happening that's causing this. Now I have a reason to go find out.
Right.
We're all busy. We've all got a lot of stuff going on. We're all, loaded with work. If time to fill is the same month over month, that tells me things are working as normal and as expected. Why I can't create hours in the day? Why am I going to go running around looking to figure out what's wrong when there's nothing wrong? So yeah, that's my canary in the coal mine. And I know a lot of people out there don't like time to fill, and it's an irrelevant measurement, but it's the
if you just use this average time, and the average time, people don't like it because the average time to fill doesn't tell you anything. If you take the average time to fill across an entire year, it's sort of a static number. And in reality, if you plotted a scatter chart of actual time to fills, you took every rec in the organization, you got 5,000 positions that you filled, and you plot it on a scatter chart, you're going to find a whole collection of dots somewhere here in the 0 to 7 days. because there's all these recs that got opened and closed the same day because you had a candidate you literally put into the rec. Then you have all these recs where you posted the job and there was a referral internal. So all these little collections of 7-day or less time to fill. Then there's going to be a few scattered throughout, and then there's going to be some in the 60, 80, 90-day. But the average is 45, which means there are no recs that are being filled in 45 days. They're either being filled in 7 or less days or 90 or more days. So 45-day time to fill means nothing.
Yeah, it's I would use that, and month by month, if there's a change, find out why. And
did it go up? Why? Did it go down? Why?
And it's interesting because you find out, right? You're forced to find out the values, your inputs into your formula to come up with it, right? So you can find out that, you know what? The US mail shut down and drug tests were not being delivered to, or county courthouses were shut down during the pandemic. Background checks can't be run, right? That causes
instantaneous delay
in hiring. So just seeing a change in time to fill, it doesn't automatically mean that, well, sourcing did a bad job by not getting enough candidates, or recruiting did a bad job not screening candidates fast enough. We've got to find out the reason why and we can justify it,
Yeah.
Then
it's like going to the doctor. You go to the doctor, one of the first things that they're going to do is take your blood pressure. They're going to listen to your heart and they're going to take your blood pressure. If you have a blood pressure of whatever over whatever, that right there doesn't diagnose anything that you have. But if it's high or if it's low, then they start asking other questions. Okay, it's high. Let's see what else is there. Is there a high this? Right? Let's do some blood tests. It's not like the heart rate or the blood pressure instantly says this is the problem. Same thing with the time to fill. So yeah, absolutely right. I think that everybody needs to know that. What else besides time to fill? What else do you use as a way to measure the health of the? And I'm asking this because time to fill can be an individual metric as well. So what else do you use as a team measure that is not an individual measure?
It depends on the organization and how they do things. Another one I look at is, I'll throw this one out there, right? Strip away the names of the sorcerers. Don't even look at who the individual is on there, and instead look at your results based on the line of business that they're supporting. Some way to differentiate. Right? Look at it from the business perspective. You could have, you support 4 different lines of business or 4 different job families in your efforts. Take away the sorcerer name and just look at the results for the business unit. You can look at, I always look at speed and quality, right? And we can lay out the metric of, did we submit 4 candidates within 7 days of when we got the request? And that's a yes or no. And how many times did we do that? To get an overall percentage, but don't look at it as sorcerer A did this, sorcerer B did this. And then if everybody's over 70%, then we all won as a team. Look at it from the business perspective. Ignore who the sorcerer was, because that'll tell you if you have the right amount of resources on your team, right? If one, or there's other challenges that are in the way of your sorcerer's performance. Right? If one line of business is significantly lower than another line, now, okay, what's causing that? Right? Are our positions not attractive enough to the candidate, or is the sorcerer not performing what they need to do
for that line of business?
For that line of business,
yeah, compared to another line of business. But what about the jobs question? Yeah, I get what you're saying, but what about the jobs? The type of the function, right? Like one line of business may be in hardware, another line of business may be in services. Just thinking out loud, right?
Yeah, right. IT is its own entity all by itself in a lot of cases because it's different than every other industry out there. Right. So that's why you've got to set appropriate expectations. Right.
So lines of businesses that are comparable.
Yeah,
not too far apart from each other.
Yeah, they shouldn't be too far apart from each other, but it's got to be able to support that line of businesses, their operations, right? Did we get what we said we were going to get? Not, you opened X recs and we got Y candidates on them. Did we do it fast enough? And it, let's come out and say it doesn't matter if it was one sorcerer doing that, or if it was 4 sorcerers that it took to do that. What the business cares about is, did you get me the candidates that I need to keep running my business? So, when you report out to the business, you're reporting at that level of my organization is supporting your organization. The business probably doesn't need to worry too much about whether you have 3 sorcerers or 4 sorcerers supporting them.
Right. They're not going to.
Did you get me what I need to keep running the
outcomes,
business?
Right? It's outcomes. Yeah. It's the results, right?
Yeah. From there, then you can take a step further down and peel the onion back another layer, and your sourcing manager is going to be right there on top of the sorcerers. Where's your individual performance? Show me your individual performance, because that, it all adds up to the whole. But from an organizational level, I like to look at it at the business line.
That's interesting.
Much bigger.
With aligned business lines, as long as there's that. All right. So how about let's talk about the individual sorcerer. What do you look at? And I would challenge you to say, what do you look at that's going to help the sorcerer get better? Because there's measurements and metrics just give you a rating. You're an A or a B, whatever. Like I'm not interested in that. I want to know what's going to help that sorcerer get better at what they do.
Hardcore numbers. So individual sorcerer, speed and accuracy at submittal, right? I don't like to see sorcerer's performance tied to whether or not the candidate got hired. I think that is highly unfair to the sorcerer.
And it's doubling up, because that's the recruiters. You're measuring 2 people for the same outcome.
Yeah, right. And it's we have such an old school line of thinking in recruiting where your worth and value and performance is measured on how many hires you made.
Right.
Doesn't matter who you are in recruiting. That's how we judge our worth. And I think we've evolved beyond that, but we're still hanging on that, right? How many hires did you make this month? There's so many people involved in the hiring process that it's hard to say.
It's not anyone. Yeah. It's like measuring the hiring manager for how many hires you made this month.
Yeah. And, and really it's, it's that credit for finding the candidate that really causes some of the issues. Years ago, I was in an organization where we did that. If you found the candidate, you got credit for it. What that credit got you at the end of the month, I'll never know. Right. But what you had was sorcerers going out and looking for candidates, submitting them to the recruiters. Recruiters going out and looking for the candidates, because you only get credit for the hire if you found the candidate. So recruiters will go look for their own candidates, push the sorcerers off to the side because I want mine to get hired so I get credit. Well, the sorcerers realized this was going on. So the sorcerers would then leapfrog the recruiter to get to the hiring manager to say, here's my candidates. The hiring manager say, recruiter, why do I need you? Because
exactly. So we now have 2 recruiters.
A brutal competition and between the 2 people that were supposed to function together as one and share the work and each do their part in the process. So getting back to measuring a sorcerer, it's
speed and accuracy. You said
did you get enough candidates in the right amount of time? And from there, and another good indicator is did your candidates that you submit get picked up to interview? And this is where I always pause and say 100% is not a good answer there, or not a good result.
And also, did they get picked up to interview with any position?
Yeah, that too. 100%, right? I had 100% submittal, to interview acceptance rate. That's awesome. It's good. But it also says that you didn't push the envelope at all. You didn't find a candidate that maybe didn't have all 92 different validity points that the hiring manager said they wanted. And you didn't take a chance on that up and coming candidate. That candidate from a diverse area that maybe doesn't read the same as what was expected, but can do the work and do it well, that you took a shot at, right? You said, hey, here's 3 that fit what you asked for originally. And
Yeah.
I found this one more that it doesn't look like the other 3, but I talked to them. I checked everything out. They're going to be just as perfect as the other 3, right? And then, and they say, you know what? I like the 3. I don't like this one. I'm going to reject this one. That's not a bad result. That gives you a 75% acceptance rate, though. And we look at that and say, it's not 100%. Maybe they're not doing right. It means they took.
Actually, I like 75% is actually, that's my bar, right? So that's how I measure my sorcerers, is a 75% accept rate. That's good. That means you're doing great. I mean, if you're at 70 or 65, it's not like you're at risk of losing your job or anything, but 75 is good. I'm not expecting much more than 80%. Because of that. I mean, it's not.
Yeah, right. We want to encourage the sorcerers to take a chance and push things, right? Find new talent. We are living in a world that celebrates diversity like it never has before. And to do that means things aren't always going to be 100%, right? That's neither good nor bad. That's the way
that's actually
should be.
Right. That difference is diversity. Diversity is celebrating the differences, but focusing on what brings us together, right? So 2 different people, 2 different backgrounds, perspectives, points of view with the same objective.
Yeah, it's sometimes in sourcing, I've fallen in this trap many times, right? We try and pinpoint the hire at the point of sourcing. And we pass on candidates because we're worried and focused on the one that we think is going to get hired, and then wait for them to get through the interview gauntlet before we worry or even consider looking at more candidates. That there somewhere along the way, I fell into this many times over, right? That quest for perfection, right? If I have a 1-to-1 ratio, I'm an awesome sorcerer. So how do I get a 1-to-1 ratio? I only submit 1 candidate.
Right.
That one gets hired. That's math.
That's a really good point. So a good friend of mine, AJ, who works with me here, uses the phrase that perfect is the enemy of efficient.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Focusing on like that perfect match means you didn't submit 5 candidates. To translate what you're saying, but in her own words, perfect is the enemy of efficient, because sometimes you just are spending way more time on getting it right, and sometimes getting it good and getting it good enough, gets the work done, and you can move on to something else.
As you said before, right? The right amount of technology, the right amount of pressure to get the job done.
Sometimes you do need perfect, but sometimes good enough is good enough to move on to the next thing, and it's not something that requires 100% whatever, or zero tolerance for error. Not everything, we live in this 6 Sigma world. Not everything has to be 6 Sigma, right? Some things can be good enough because they're not affecting other stuff that would be clogging out the process. So and in to add what you're saying is that, to add to that, is you're saying we're also probably ignoring diversity if we're focusing on such a narrow definition of the perfect candidate.
It's it's part of that. We don't want to be just an order taker, right? We've got to know our business and know what good looks like so that we can go find it. And sometimes it comes in a different shape or flavor. It's still good, right? It met that definition of good. It doesn't matter what it looks like, how tall or short it is, anything. It's good, and that's what we want. We want good. So let's take it. Even getting into I'll segue into where we source from.
Okay.
Right. So often we're focused on, it has to be a passive candidate. I only want to see a passive candidate for this role. I don't want to see an active job seeker for this role. That's something that I've read and seen throughout life a couple of times. But really, why? And or that the candidate only counts if we found it with a very fancy Boolean string, right?
Right, shiny object syndrome, sort of like, yeah.
Yeah,
I got you.
the candidates that applied, not worried. I need to go find one. There was always, there was an old cartoon about, where we need to hire 100 people. Where are we going to find them? And somebody says, why don't we hire the 100 that are standing in line for the job right now? And they throw the guy out the window for his outlandish idea. Simple is effective. Simple is good. But I think we need to be a little bit more agnostic in our sourcing and help our sourcers perform better, right? We invest millions of dollars in employer branding campaigns.
Yeah.
To be the best place to work, to attract the best talent. And when we do attract them, right, they're attracted organically a lot of times because of that. They're going on our careers page without a sourcer reaching out to them.
And then we're not considering them because they're active candidates, is what you're saying.
Yeah. So yeah, right. Is that part of sourcing? Some organizations, yes, some no, right? I enjoy the idea that sourcing covers the entire candidate pool, right? Doesn't matter where they came from, we're sourcing candidates. And if we can set up, work with employer branding to drive organic traffic, if we can work on job distribution and media orchestration to constantly be out there and attract talent while we're not at work, while we don't have our fingers on the keyboard, while we're home enjoying time with family, but we're still driving candidates to the sites by being the job they see when they decide it's time to go look for a job and they apply on their own. To me, that's still part of the grander scheme of sourcing, and we shouldn't overlook that. Right, our human sourcing.
That's what you talk about. You call that scale, or scalable, or scaled sourcing, right? Because there's the, as you mentioned before to me, the individual find that one perfect candidate, or find that one, maybe it's not the perfect candidate, but find somebody that can do this job, and there's only 12 people in the world that can do it. There's always that kind of sourcing. Yeah. But you're talking about the type of sourcing that increases applications, and it's not, they're maybe not necessarily passive candidates per se, but we are having an impact in applicant flow, right? So it's still sourcing. You're finding people, you're somehow engaging them, and you're directing them, and you're directing that traffic. It's still sourcing. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. It's kind of like employer referrals, right? It's timing. Timing is everything in the world of hiring, right? Probably even more than perfect fit between candidate and job. Timing comes down to a lot of stuff.
Yeah, right. I'm not available right now, but then it happens to be that they're available and somebody else hires them.
And
so
the job isn't open anymore. It comes down to timing. So getting them in the system, and when we try to differentiate, they found this candidate on LinkedIn versus they found this candidate in the ATS already. There's some great data and insights to be gained from that at a grander scale. But when it comes down to that individual candidate on that individual position, I don't think it's as important as so many other points that can be made around who to hire, where they come from. In today's age of technology, I've probably got 7 to 12 different touch points with your organization before I've even applied. Can I really tie it to just one source?
One source of hire. Yeah, that's been that way for a while though, but yeah.
Yeah, and from the sourcing side of the house, right? This is where I pick up I take insights and wisdom from outside of sourcing and bring it here, right? Because I went to job board X and didn't find a candidate for my job, it doesn't mean in the future that job board X is pointless to go to, that I shouldn't go waste time there because I didn't find somebody that one time, or the candidate I didn't find said no to our offer, so I'm never going to use that job board again. I think that's That's not the smart
Well,
way.
if that was true, then nobody would use LinkedIn.
Yeah. It's, we don't want to put all our eggs in one basket, and we don't want to close off any doors when it comes to sourcing, because, it's the methodology, right? The step-by-step. Is the job description good? Is the job title good? Do we get it out to the locations to be seen? Did we attract that step-by-step?
And that changes.
And right. And sometimes, hey, sometimes job board goes belly up and it doesn't exist anymore. Great, we can finally take it off our list. Or the difference of, do we post it manually or do we set up XML feeds? Even though maybe it's just this one job we need. If you think about scale, it's easier to just do the XML feed and get every job up there rather than just this one job up there.
Yeah.
Pick up free stuff.
But you know what, though? I mean, so, I brought LinkedIn into the world of recruiting, right? When I was first on LinkedIn, it was 2004. I was, one of the first 50,000 or some odd people like that. It wasn't being used for recruiting. And I basically dragged them into recruiting, kicking and streaming. The two of the three founders I was, messaging with, Constantine and Patrick. And I'm like, you guys got to get in this industry. This is like, there's recruiters are starving for this kind of like, and they're like, no. A couple of years went by, and finally, so I dragged them into the industry, kicking and screaming. And I introduced the world of recruiting to LinkedIn and LinkedIn to the world of recruiting. And they'll fast forward to today. And just to play to what you're saying, the mentality of recruiters is people are asking me, what's going to replace LinkedIn? What's next? And so if you think about the question that they're saying is, what's the one channel that's going to replace the one channel? They're not asking, what else is there besides LinkedIn? Like, the question isn't, hey, Shally, what else is there besides LinkedIn? The question is, what will replace LinkedIn? And it's like, wow, folks,
Yep.
Nothing is going to replace LinkedIn. Lots of things are going to replace LinkedIn. It's like,
yep.
And even today, it's not just one source. I remember when, you and I were rookies and we're working off of hot jobs and computer jobs. We still had, we had net temps. I had like 5 or 6 job boards that I paid for. I never had just one job board. Not even when Monster was it. I still used Dice and, 5 other job boards. And, so it's the mentality of, hey, what's going to replace the one place we go to? If you're only fishing in one pond, eventually you're going to overfish that pond.
Yeah, you're already on the endangered species list.
Because you're fishing in the pond.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Because so is everybody else. And, then, really what it comes down to, what makes you different. But where are you getting new candidates, right? As big as LinkedIn is.
Instead of finding another pond for yourself, you want to go to the same pond everybody else is going to go to and overfish that one. It's, hive mentality, I guess. I don't know. Yeah,
that whole, I found a great hire on this job board. So, sorry, my obnoxious ringtone went off there.
No worries.
I found a candidate on this job board with this Boolean string, so that's what I need to use for every job just like this in the future. And maybe it works and maybe it doesn't. But you don't want to isolate yourself like that and box yourself in. Even just Boolean searches themselves, right? It's not you don't want it to be perfect on the first try. You can't ever really write the perfect string and fire that one bullet and get the one candidate. It's got to be that living, breathing, constantly adjusting string, because you're gonna. It's something that I would teach new sorcerers in our team, right? You start broad, and just like our candidate funnel,
exactly.
Start broad and just slowly narrow it down.
Whittle it down. It's a lot harder to go the other way. It's a lot harder.
Don't even think about reaching out to candidates in the first 3 layers of that search. Wait until you get it down to a manageable amount, but you can see what causes your population to
whittle away.
What employer or what experience grows or shrinks your pool of available
sample set. Yep. Yeah, and my number I always talk about is 300. And that's because if you look at 300 results and you have a quality of about 50%, so if half of the 300 results are viable in some way, shape, or form, that's still 150 leads. So you can take 150 leads, reach out to some of them, and hopefully end up with 50 or 40 people that you can connect with. So 300 is a pretty good number, much more than that. And also incidentally, when you're doing searches on Google, 299 is the maximum. They won't show you a 300th page. So there's also that, but that happened after I started talking about 300.
So you're saying Siri and Alexa and Google are listening and saying, let's mess with Shally.
Right. Yeah. Paranoia. Only the paranoid survive, right?
It's but this is what makes sourcing so much fun, right? We have to take actions on incomplete sets of information.
That's right. A lot of ambiguity. That's a big part of it.
It's going to change tomorrow.
And all right, we're adding to the list. Comfortable with ambiguity. Now I've got my 7.
Yeah, it's yeah, right. You want to find who's going to be the good sorcerer.
Yeah, they got to have curiosity. This is a great way to wrap up, by the way. So who's going to be a good sorcerer?
In the other room. If they run to the fire, hire them. If they run away from the fire, let them keep running.
Right. Yeah. So, okay. So curiosity, creativity, technical comfort, right? Aptitude, comfort, whatever, time management / prioritization. And then comfortable with ambiguity, that can make decisions and take actions based on incomplete information. I think we have our 7 core competencies that will allow you to hire someone that could become a sorcerer despite whether or not they're doing that job now. I love it. That's a really good way to summarize.
We did it.
Our talk for today. Yeah, we did it.
We did it.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for being on the show, Dan. Really a pleasure to have you here. I hope we can do this again when you are able to reveal your employer someday.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Me too. Right. It's, it's fun. New organization, new learnings, just reconfirming all over again that the only thing constant is change. Right.
Yep. So let's revisit in a few months,
yeah,
6 months or so, something like that. And we'll have you back on the show.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you very much, Shally. I loved it. And everybody watching, go Navy, beat Army.
All right. Bye, Dan. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Bye-bye.